Good morning, all. Today we're going to paint this wonderful roses on the vine here, and this is in Italy, in Volterra, where I did a workshop a while ago. All right, so let's begin with the painting the wall of the building. It's a stucco, so we'll paint the whole wall, everything except the windows. The windows are pine, trimmed in pine, and they're white. So let's drop just raw sienna. Excuse me, raw sienna makes a beautiful stucco wall here. In Italy, everything's warm and wonderful. All right, I'm just throwing, I painted the whole wall with the raw sienna and it dried, and now I'm just spattering the wall with the same raw sienna. I put a tiny drop of red in there to make it a little bit darker, and then I'm moving it around with my finger, and as you can see, that gives you a beautiful sense of a stucco wall. All right. Okay, we're going to paint the windows first. You got a bunch of windows, so it's just raw sienna. Excuse me, it's just ultramarine blue with a little touch of quinacridone sienna, and then I'm adding some cobalt blue just to hold on to the blue part of it. It's a nice dark blue without overemphasizing the blue in there. So it's a nice dark blue window reflecting the sky. All right, so I'm gonna, above it we have this half circle window divided into several panes like pieces of pie, and I'm just going to paint those first, get them all out of the way, and then I'll speed it up down as we get down below because there's so many windows. And the key here is just get a nice pointed brush, and no problem at all putting them in. I didn't mention, but the drawing here is very important to establish those lines. All right, same colors down here. Change to a flat brush. This is a 3/4 inch brush. Perfect. I love this brush because it's my window brush. Whenever you have a bunch of windows, and you can expand it if you press harder, it gets wider, and you can tap it on the sides and it gets smaller. So it's good to have. All right, I mixed up a dark here. This is just ultramarine blue with a little bit of quinsienna. Gives us a nice dark. It's not quite black. And what I'm doing is painting the reflections of a tree that's in these windows. Okay. And then down below here, I'm just using straight raw sienna. That's the shadow of the window sill, and up here I changed to quinacridone sienna. It's a little strong, but what I'm doing here is just putting the bricks in around the curve of the top window and on the side, and then when it's wet, it's still wet, tap it with a towel. That gives you that worn out look. Okay. All right, and now we're going down the side. And then there's darker bricks across the window sill, and they're tilted slightly. Same thing, just put them in, get it when it's wet, take a towel and just touch them. It gives it that old look, like it's worn off and so forth. All right, this window I'm going to paint totally in shade. We don't want that distracting us from the other side. All right, I mixed up a shadow color here. Ultramarine and rose will give you a violet, and then just drop in some raw sienna, and that will gray it down. So we're painting the shadow underneath the vine. We're doing that first. You could vary it a little bit here and there, spattering some more, just giving the impression that the light is coming from our top right-hand side, casting the shadow, and it comes all the way over. The vine is right across the middle of that, and it has that black black lantern on top, which is great. All right, now I'm mixing the green for this is the green for the vine itself, and what I used there was Quin Gold and a touch of Windsor Blue. Gives you a nice green here without getting too bright, but I'm going to basically paint the whole vine with that and then add the darks and so forth. Try to leave more whites in the vine than I did here. It's great to see through it. And another thing I didn't mention is when you do that shadow underneath, while it's wet, you want to drop raw sienna in it here and there, and just it gives you beautiful reflective light. All right, we mixed up a dark there, ultramarine. I use ultramarine and raw sienna here to get this darker green, and I'm just going to use that to go down. Just randomly spotting it here and there. You can look at the photo and get, study that out, get some ideas. I added a little bit of quinacridone sienna here to the green, and putting these trunks or vines in, that are based in the soil underneath. All right, little shadow underneath the bottom leaves on the vine. And then there's the soil that's in a little bit of a encampment, encasing there, just soil. And, all right, so I'm just bringing some of these vines hanging outside. One major thing that I forgot here was I didn't paint around the roses. Absolutely not necessary. I'm going to use some gouache to paint them in, but it will be nice if you could remember them and paint around them and keep that white paper. That will give you a nice bright flower. All right, I'm painting the lantern here, and this is just our usual black, and I put a drop of raw sienna in it to gray it down and not have it. It's not a really heavy duty black. All right, and then I added a touch of water for the top. The top casing there is not real black. It's all worn out and missing paint and so forth. And a little bit of raw sienna inside. We're looking up at the bottom of that plate, so that's the warm shadow from the wall and the trees and all that. I'm going to go in and put a nice shadow under that. All right, I'm using some gouache here to paint those flowers in, and then I'm going to touch them with rose. You could leave them white if you wanted to, but I like the rose. So they're still wet, and I'm just going to drop some rose in them, painting the bottoms, and it's enough to give you the flower. And while they're still wet, I'm going to do a little more shaping to them, and make them a little more important, because they are important. Just spattering some raw sienna with a little touch of the green for reflection on the ground and soil in front, keeping in mind that we want to lead our viewer into that plant and into the roses and so forth. That's the most important part of the painting, getting the vines right. All right, this is an important part now. It's all done basically. And what I'm doing is spattering the whole vine with plain water, tapping the water here, patting it out so it's still wet. Now I moved in, you can see how that leaves, wiping it off now, pat it first and then wipe. And it adds light to the painting, it brings light onto that. So, all right, I hope you enjoyed that. That was a fun painting to do in Italy, and it was fun here. Thank you so much for joining me, and I will see you again very soon.